Welcome back, welcome back. Do take your seats. I hope you enjoyed your coffees and your networking, and welcome back to everyone watching us online. I might have to be stern and shush you in a moment. Okay, we're starting. So, we have our panelists ready here, and what we're going to be looking at now is how we can learn from insights from implementing the Recovery and Resilience Facility and the Technical Support Instrument so that we can focus EU support on the biggest challenges, which we've been hearing about, with the most impactful reforms for member states. To discuss this with me, let me introduce my esteemed panel of guests. We have Evi Thrameiotti, Secretary General of Coordination for the Greek government. And I do have to say, she's literally just flown in, has just arrived. That is dedication, so well done, from the airport. We have Georgina Cicluna, who's Director General responsible for the implementation of cohesion and RRP funds in Malta. We have Theodora Preotiasa, Honorary Councillor at the Chancellery, I knew I'd struggle on that one, of the Prime Minister of Romania, also Director of EU Administrative Funds within the Development and Investment Bank of Romania. And we have Urmu Merila, who is Deputy Director General and Head of Managing Authority for EU Structural Funds, State Shared Service Centre Estonia. And we have Géraldine Maillot, who's Director at DG ECFIN. Welcome to all of you. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So, Evie, I'm not going to give you a moment to catch your breath. I'm going to come straight to you. Okay. EU support to Greece, both technical and financial, has been significant over time and has led to transformation in various fields: public administration, healthcare, labour market. You can tell us more. I guess, and we've seen a positive impact, right, on citizens' lives. The question is, how do you think Greece and other member states could ensure a better alignment between the country-specific recommendations we've been hearing about and the requests for support under the TSI? To you.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be with you. I'm always happy to be and work with DG Reform. I have much experience because I was lucky and unlucky to work at the Secretariat General for coordinations through the years of the crisis. So the support of SRSP and Task Force for Greece, we remember all these initial forms of the SG, was very supportive for us. So we are in the place to share with you our experiences, designing together with European Commission programs that are targeted to reforms was very helpful. And now I've been with the mission of the Ministry of Finance to the IMF World Bank spring meetings, and IMF was saying that Greece is one of the most successful countries of the year, having these numbers of development that are astonishing. And it's impressive because we are a country that we had 3 very hard financial stability programs. Now, what we have done, the first years, the programs were very obligatory, so we didn't have the possibility to make tailor-made support. But after the years of the crisis, we know exactly what we need, and one of the key elements is that the Secretariat General for Coordination has the overall coordination of the national action plans. That means that our governmental program is annual, and we have the annual action plans of every ministry that is agreed by the Council of Ministers. And this is very helpful because we know beforehand what are the main investments and reforms that we want to proceed. So these reforms and investments are very closely linked with the program, with TSI and with CSRs. So what we are discussing now, it's already achieved in Greece, and I think this is a recommendation to share with the other countries. It's very good to have their own annual program so that it can be more easily linked with the TSI and with the TSI needs. Because we've seen in the past TSI programs not so much linked with the reform and investments that are the main priorities, European and national priorities, and this didn't work so well because maybe you have a very good achievement, but you cannot use it centrally, so it doesn't matter, and after some months, it is of no use. So let's link our priorities with TSI, and let's have a central control of this.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'm going to move along then to Georgina. You're working on European funds as well as reforms for the Maltese Prime Minister Office. The TSI project supported the implementation of the RRF in Malta. So can you tell us a little about how it worked, and what would you say are the critical points for making this link again strong and efficient?
Thank you, and once again, it's an honor to be on this panel to share our experiences in Malta. So Malta's experience with the TSI in supporting the implementation of the RRP has been a valuable one, both from a strategic and an operational point of view. In 2021, the Planning and Priorities Coordination Division, of which I am the head, applied for support under the TSI in order to enhance the implementation modalities of the managing authorities, specifically to adapt to the demands of the RRP. What made our case quite unique is that in Malta, all managing authorities for EU-funded programs, whether under shared or direct management, are housed within the same ministry. So this gave us the opportunity to build on existing governance structures, which were developed in line with the cohesion policy, but then strive to apply them to performance-based frameworks like the RRF. The TSI project helped us to reassess our systems, our skills, and the management structures. It focused on key areas such as performance monitoring, the NSH assessments, and fraud detection. It essentially enabled us to future-proof our administration by aligning it more closely with the specific demands of performance-based delivery. However, I have to admit, from a personal experience, that transitioning between the different implementation models, while also shifting from one programming period to the next under cohesion policy, was extremely challenging for all our managing authorities. Very often, what looks like simplification on paper doesn't necessarily translate on the ground, and sometimes it ends up to be more a shifting of responsibilities rather than simplification. However, what the RRP did, and this is very important for us, was to push us to rethink our approach. It forced us to move beyond our legacy systems under cohesion policy and to move away just for continuity's sake. What is critical at this stage is the alignment of the understanding of how performance plans are implemented across the different stages of a plan cycle. Start from the legislation to programming, implementation, and finally, of course, audit mechanisms. For instance, the recent European Court of Auditors report noted that performance orientation is not simply about milestones and targets. It includes effectiveness, efficiency, and even information on actual costs. That is quite different from the understanding that we had when we negotiated the RRP legal framework and plan. Indeed, unless all nodes are aligned in terms of requirement and understanding, it will be difficult to improve systems. However, in short, and by way of conclusion, the TSI has been essential in helping Malta evolve its governance model. But if we really and truly want to reduce administrative burdens and strengthen impact, all actors, from regulators to auditors, must be aligned in the understanding and expectations.
Thank you very much. Very clear. Very interesting to hear. Theodora, your turn. I'm coming to you. So Romania has received reform support for over 100 projects via the TSI. It's also receiving support from international organizations outside the TSI framework. So what would you say might be the element which is most instrumental for impactful reforms and lessons learned as well from these different experiences?
Thank you for your question, and thank you for having me today. Indeed, Romania received a huge support from the TSI, and I was a direct beneficiary as well, so I can share from my experience directly. But I think what it is the most important, and I think we should reflect on that, it is not only the idea how to design the reforms, and this is something that we have received from the TSI, indeed, the way how to draft and to design the reform. But I think we should very much reflect also on how to best deliver them. So I think this is the most lesson that we can draw from all our past experience. And also I think what it is important for us is to look objectively at the facts, a substantial and transformative progress was achieved at the territorial level in terms of territorial capital through the cohesion policy. The RRF, it is, however, in many ways, a breakthrough instrument because it addresses with unprecedented scope the problem of the institutional capital. And some thinkers rightfully argue, and I heard also in the other panels, that I think the idea of the institutional capital is actually an integral part of the territorial capital. So many of the reforms that are supported, that are enabled and mainstreamed by the RRF are aimed at improving the quality of institutions, the institutional capital. I think this is the most important part of everything what we are doing nowadays. And then I think what it is also really impactful and important is to reflect on the idea, how can we better link the territorial capital with the territorial productivity? And this is something that also Mr. Draghi sees as essential without having quality institutions. And the question is, we can have quality institutions if we are not having a continuous preoccupation for improvement, performance, and reform? I think this is the main questions. And then it is one thing to be aware of the fact, be aware of the needs, but it is totally different altogether to design and to implement reforms, especially in some areas which are highly complex. And I will give an example. Energy sector, for us, it's quite challenging. Or some areas which are very much entrenched into the traditional way of doing things. And I think also it is also important to look to the two directions. One, it is important to provide finance, for instance, for motorways. It is, for Romania, it's important. But to ensure, of course, the connectivity corridors vital for Europe. But it is totally different and equally important to run a path-breaking reform in pension system, for example. So I think, in my opinion, as I mentioned, those two directions are really important if what we want to achieve at the end is to stay resilient, to stay connected, and to stay competitive. And then moving to the lesson learned, and the idea that starting from the social European model and also from our social economy, I think what it is important is to have strong institutions at all levels, European, national, regional, and local. And the strong institutions, I think, should be able to find long-term solutions and to address the root causes. This is very important, the root causes and the bureaucratic inefficiencies, and to also to overcome all the challenges that we face, like demographic, like climate transitions, like competitiveness, like defense, resilience, and so on. So I think this is the direction that we have to look all together. And also, what it is important, because we look all together, the idea and the title is supporting reforms. Indeed, this is why I support reforms, because it is important to make that change. And it is the only way to trust and to gain the trust, actually, in all the public institutions at all levels, and also in the European project as such. And to give an example more concretely, how I would frame, if you want, a key problem in need of a reform. Perhaps before saying how, I will ask you a question. I will challenge you actually with the questions. Do you think we can rely today at the regional level on a steady pipeline of quality investment projects that can really boost the economy forward? Nobody will say nothing, no? Why? Because, you know, good projects are very difficult to be developed, very difficult to be implemented without having the appropriate expertise in place. Exactly where is the most required? And also good projects, we all know, that can be drafted with a technical support instrument, with international organizations, and this is something that is happening on the ground, in the cohesion policy with the support of the international organization. Also, sometimes selected by the TSI project, sometimes directly from the technical assistance that we have under our national programs, but also in RRF with the technical support to draft the reforms and to design it and also to implement it. And then, I will stop, but it is very important because I heard in the other panel the idea of ownership. But before discussing about the diffusion of ownership, I think it is important to reflect on diffusion of expertise. And the retention capacity, because this is really important, expertise, retention capacity, where exactly in those areas which are the most challenged. And to give you 2 examples of 2 reforms which I would like very much to see it front-loaded. One reform is the reform increasing the capacity of the communities and regions in order to put in their growth strategies the innovative enterprises and high-growth enterprises. I think this is really important, and the regions should remain at the center of our work, but at the center of the work of our regions, we should strive to put innovative enterprises with high growth potential. And another reform, which I would very much like it to see it front-loaded, is the reform that removing barriers to essential services, to social care, to health care, to protection care. These are the reforms which can increase the acceptability, the accessibility, and the connectivity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I like it when someone else asks the questions too. I like that. It's normally just me asking the questions. Thank you very much for that. We're going to come to Estonia, to hear Estonia's experience. A very similar question. You've been working on European funds as well as with reform support for many years. Same question. TSI project supported the implementation of the RF in Estonia. Can you tell us a little how it worked and the critical points in your view for making this link strong and efficient?
Yeah, thank you for this question, and thank you for having me here. It's a great honor to be here with you, with so many technical support instrument experts. Not only, I guess, technical support instruments, but capacity building experts and those who really would like to change and make things happen. And I really totally agree that it starts also from the institutions and the people behind the institutions. If they don't want to change, there is a challenging then to find the motivation behind that. So everything comes from the people. But from the Estonian case, selecting the projects, or actually we call it not a kind of project tool. It's a kind of real strategic mechanism what we're using in Estonia. And all the kind of projects have to be somehow related, well, not somehow, but directly related with the Estonia 2035. It's an umbrella strategy, long-term development plan in Estonia, and also have to be linked with the country-specific recommendation and also recovery and resilience facility. And also if there was kind of sectoral development plan, it have to be linked with those as well. Yeah, the first comes the raising awareness. We are raising awareness here. We also start already, not the late summer with the round, but already early as possible to raise the awareness, the possible beneficiaries, that there is a call coming and please be ready. We actually used also the service design tools to review the whole process, because at the beginning we saw that many people were kind of overloaded, and why do you need again to send some kind of applications and then go through the process? But I have to say that the process is quite simplified here comparing to other maybe funds. And we reviewed with the service design tools, we clarified all the process for the beneficiaries, helped a lot. And we established the 2-round selection of the projects there. The first is kind of consultation round, where actually we take on board the ideas there. We come back to them, and maybe there are some possibilities to merge some of the projects. Already ministries start to cooperate there with the project. And this is kind of idea round there. This actually gives us a bigger impact, and we can also reflect whether they have linked with the strategies, what we have set as a goal to be linked there. And the second round is actually really kind of evaluation, those project evaluation according to the those evaluation criteria. Of course, the budget, is it implementable? And are they linked with the reforms there? So 2 rounds goes there. It's, of course, it's quite challenging, because if the round will open, we don't have much time there. But keeping a contact with the beneficiaries helps a lot there. And we also evaluate the satisfaction rate of the beneficiaries, and it's almost about 80%, and we're very happy with that. And we really see that it really matters because the feedback is very, very kind of positive there. I have to admit that in some cases, challenge is, as I mentioned, that it's simplified tool. In some cases, when we start with the reform, from the idea, from the scratch, it takes maybe half a year, 1 year, then going to the goal, sending the application, receiving final decision from the European Commission. I have to admit it is very fast. European Commission makes very good work there. But after that comes the kind of contract phase and or procurement phase, and then it might take 12 to 18 months in some cases, and this is a challenge from our side because from start to the from the beginning to the end, it can take 2-3 years. But today's global situation, we see that doing reforms, making change happen after 3 years, it can be already kind of old idea in some cases. So, and the policy cycle is quite short in some cases. In Estonia, it can be 2-3 years, and we can lose momentum with that. If we can do something with that to get the procurement faster, it could be very good. And help us a lot. And I guess the challenge is also to maybe, I know it's legally challenging, but to involve also the beneficiaries, possible beneficiaries to the terms of reference there. Because we can raise the ownership with that, and I guess it helps a lot. So, but raising the capacity of the possible beneficiaries, these kind of events in the member states, it helps a lot.
Thank you. And I saw lots of nodding from the others when you were speaking. Geraldine, we've heard from the different member states, their experiences, lots of points of agreement, challenges, similar experiences. I want to come to you as Director of DG ECFIN that's been working on the implementation of the RRF over the years together with SG Recover. From your perspective, how has its implementation benefited either directly or indirectly from TSI support?
So many thanks for having me, and in particular because before being in the DG ECFIN, I was also working in DG Reform and before in the SRSS, so I'm very much knowledgeable of the instrument and also a big fan of the instrument because I think it brings a lot. So, but indeed, there is a very much link between the RF and the TSI. In fact, the legal bases refer to each other. And in fact, in the very beginning, before we did the RF, the first proposal, we had all of them in one instrument. So this was thought through as supporting each other. And now the fact that now you have DG Reform that has been merged with DG Recovery. It's another sign that now you are even close administratively to each other. So, and as you know, RF is, the idea is that we pay on the basis of the milestones and target and our progress, our implementation of reform and investment. And it's very hard for member states to do that. They are lacking sometimes the expertise, the administrative capacity, and that's, I think, here where the TSI can help and has helped, basically. So generally, where the TSI can help, it can help on the administrative capacity, and I think it was mentioned, where more generally, the TSI, some projects have helped, for example, on the organization of the control and monitoring system. So some member states have used that, like Portugal, I think there was Latvia, Ireland, Cyprus. They helped to set up the instrument that would help the member state to monitor the implementation of the RRP, so the reform and investment plan. So that was, I think, very good. Then the TSI can also bring sectorial expertise that is sometimes very much needed in the preparation for legal framework for general reform, and I think this has been the case. I do remember that we were doing a lot on health. For example, healthcare is very specific. You need, for example, a DRG expert. You could bring an expert there to help the member state to implement the reform, and that helps then speed up the implementation of the reform and therefore get faster the money from the RF. There is also this, what I think works very well is that the TSI is able to bring best practice from other countries, of good practice, because maybe there's no best practice, but at least good practice. And there was like a lot of workshops, sharing of expertise between the member states, and that helps a lot in terms of the implementation of project. And then also now, and it was less the case when I was in DG Reform, is much more now, is this multi-country project, where basically then all countries that share the same problem can then benefit from one single project, and I think it's also very, very beneficial. So as a result, I think that if my colleague told me, I haven't counted myself, that more than 500 basically reforms have been helped, or at least measured from the RRF, have been supported by the TSI, and I think this has, as I said in the beginning, helped to speed up the implementation. We are not there yet on the RF, but at least we're probably better with the TSI than without it. Just let me give you maybe just a couple of examples. So I think in Romania, there was, and I think it's even started at the time I was already there, so there is a major issue with the early school leaving, so students dropping out from the school. And here the TSI has really helped to, for example, create a system to monitor and help the country to see what is happening in the country. So I think we had also in Croatia, they have a problem with the water that is lost, and in here again, there was a TSI that helped to prepare the legal framework for it. Or in Greece, which has been a major support receiver of these support since early days, even in the task force. For example, there is an unemployment benefit reform, but I think that where there was like help on the drafting of the law, but also the piloting, help on the rollout. So I think this instrument can really, if well targeted and if well thought through, also in terms of timeline, can really support the member states to implement these important reforms that are, of course, very much linked not only to the RF, but linked to the CSR, the country-specific recommendation, which for us is really the focus of the attention of the Commission for Member States. Thanks.
Thank you. It's great to have your insight into that, and that you go back that far as well, having seen its progression, and to have those concrete examples as well is always great. I'm going to stay with you because we're going to now switch to looking ahead, looking forward. Staying with the same topic, but how do you think then that the TSI could improve the implementation of reforms in the future, in the next cycle? And how do we bring more efficiency in the way the TSI and the European semester are managed? Looking ahead.
Okay, that is a very important question, and I think it would be crucial because now we are entering the preparation of the next MFF, even though it's in a few years' time, we need to prepare from now. So I think what the RF experience has shown is that I think if you link the TSI to another program, you help the efficiency of this program. Why? Because you can then ensure, and I think this needs to be even more the case in the future, to focus on the key projects that are linked to CSR, that are very important for the country, for the implementation, and that having these projects that are then implemented by another instrument then allows to not only focus the mind, but also make sure that the member state will benefit from the TSI, will use it and will follow up. Because in some cases, we provide, and I think you said it as well, so we provide the support, but then nothing happens, maybe because it's too late or because priority has changed. But it's a pity because the ingredients are there. So I think having the link between the two, making sure that we focus on the right one, and then we make sure that then the member states follow up on this, I think it's quite important. Another reflection, at least on my side, is that whether this annual cycle works the best. So it has some advantage because you allow for having money for a long time, but at the same time it constrains also the availability of funding. And if you think about if member states are now preparing large plan, they need a lot of support in the beginning because they need to prepare the investment pipeline, the reforms, and so on and so forth. So having a possibility to have maybe not necessarily everything just spent in a linear way may be also useful. Also, I mean, for emergency need, it was always more difficult to find money if you have like this annual cycle and then you come just after the cycle, too bad, there is no more money. So that was, I think, another reflection that I had. Another one that I think is also quite important is to come back to the administrative capacity. I think not all member states have the same administrative capacity, and we can see if you compare RF absorption and, for example, cohesion absorption, the absorption is farther in the RF, but still some member states are the same in terms of administrative challenge. So the question is whether I mean, of course, we need to support all member states, but at the same time, if money is scarce, maybe there is a need to focus on the member state for which that we see that the administrative capacity is the weakest at this stage and they need more support. And then maybe there would be a reflection to start thinking, okay, maybe there is a need to, in the next cycle, to have an ex-ante impact assessment to see, okay, which are the member states that needs the most funding, and then we can support that. The TSI is also largely focusing on reforms. Some projects were also investment were also supported, but much less. And I see, at least in the RF, we have this issue that building, and I think you said it, building investment pipeline and good project is very difficult. It takes time. It's not only to think about the project, but to have to think about the technology that is needed. Is it the right one? Is the cost adequate, and so on and so forth. So having maybe also support on that side, which was at least at my time less the case, would be also probably a support. And last point, in the RF, we struggle quite a bit in the cost assessment. So member state had to produce this cost estimate, and member state, as well as us, we were not necessarily sure of what is the exact cost of the project. So having maybe support for at least some project on the cost estimate. Some member states did it. For example, I know that Cyprus has requested TSI for that. It was quite smart, I have to say. So that may be also a good way. So a few issues for reflection, at least.
Yeah, lots for reflection. Thank
Thanks.
you very much. Great. I'm going to come for the Greek perspective over there, Evie. In your opinion, what would you say are the most promising areas where good coordination and synchronization of the EU support reforms and the European semester could be effective in terms of producing lasting results, in promoting investments, enhancing competitiveness from the Greek perspective?
Yes, in order to be effective, we need to have this complementarity. I think this is a key word, to link the TSI with the RRF, with the NSRF, because most of the reforms have some main goals. So we have to think about it. And that's why I really believe that in order to run all these kind of projects, you need a central hub of information, like the Secretary General for Coordination, which is an obligation coming from the ministries of coming from the years of the crisis. Because then OECD said that there's not so much institutional memory, there's not so much ownership in the reforms for Greece. That's why I really believe that you need this central hub in order to see in which cases you can guarantee the complementarity and in which cases you can avoid the overlappings. So having these interlinkages, it is very effective. As for Greece, I can say to you that concerning the European funds, Greece is second at the rating of the absorption of the funds for each programming period. And for the RRF, it is fifth. It was second, but now we ran to have one more payment request for this year. So the absorption is very high, and this is because we have some central hubs that run all this programming. As for reforms, what I can also say is that we have experienced that having some follow-ups of our projects with TSI is more effective than having many single projects, because many reforms are very demanding, and in order to have them long-lasting, you need time. From my experience, reforms need time, so you can just not have one TSI project and think that, okay, you can be effective and you can run the whole thing. It's not easy. So having this kind of bridges for reforms, follow-ups projects was very supportive. Some examples. Housing policy. We have a TSI project for housing for young people. This was very effective, and this is totally linked with an RRF project that we ran for affordable housing for young couples and young people. We have a new program, My House, with many money invested, that people can go to the bank and have some very cheap loans in order to obtain their home. The design of the project was supported by TSI in the beginning. Also, acceleration of justice. This was a great challenge in Greece because we were not very fast in reaching our final decisions, and this has to do with investments also. TSI was very supported now we have much faster final decisions in the courts. Tax evasions, you supported, SG reform supported the Independent Authority for Public Revenue. This is a best practice in the EU. It has got much technical assistance by several rounds of TSI, and now it is a best practice. We have one of the biggest numbers of combating tax evasions in the EU, tax evasion in the EU. And capacity building in this area was very productive. I have also to refer to how we can foster competitiveness by the simplification of business environment with several projects on doing business, investment licensing, getting public administration less bureaucratic. Now we have target setting supported by AI in public administration due to our collaboration with SG reform. So all this was very helpful, but having bridges, having follow-up, having continuity in our planning was one of the key elements of our success. And one last thing, we are lucky enough because we have the SG reform office in Athens all these years, and I think that this was an extra element of having successful reforms in Greece, because this proximity with the people coming from European Commission, this availability of them to come to our offices to discuss every detail of the reform was very successful, because we had the opportunity to design with them the theses, the descriptions in a more productive way. That's why we are one of the countries with the biggest number of TSI projects, and one of the countries that cover one of the biggest part of the EU budget for technical assistance reforms.
Thank you. It's very helpful. It's very interesting hearing the behind the scenes, how it works, and yeah, I think it's very helpful to hear that. Thank you. Georgina, similar, but going further, how do you think that the EU should support reform? And how could technical support and funding programs be better integrated in the future? And just to throw in as well, how to incentivize reform support?
Thank you, and that is a very good question. Indeed, as already accentuated with our colleagues, DRRP, and how it ties with the country-specific recommendations is they have a very intimate link. But we believe that there are systemic misalignments that we also need to address. For example, CSRs are updated annually, and they assess the status quo on an annual basis. But there is the feedback received, which is not always validated. We have to keep in mind that funding programs operate on a multi-annual cycle. So projects take years to deliver tangible results, so there is often a gap between the action which is taken and the visible impact. This disconnect can make it difficult to assess progress fairly, but just because results aren't visible yet does not mean that reforms are not underway. Another difficulty: not all CSRs fall neatly within the scope of existing funding instruments like cohesion policy or the CAP. Indeed, trying to use the same funds to respond to all the CSRs could dilute their purpose, or even perhaps lead to risks of overlap and double funding, which we definitely need to avoid. However, a specific point on reforms specifically. When reforms are viewed within the constraints of results achieved within the timelines of the program, very often what happens is that the Commission and the Member States might include and program reforms for which results can be felt with immediacy. However, this often does not lead to the long-standing structural changes that might require shifts in the culture within a country, in the systems, and often in citizen behavior. So we really do need to resist the urge to reduce the reform to a checklist of perhaps only short-term achievements. And what comes to mind is a very concrete example. Under Malta's RRP, in the case of judiciary reforms and digital investments, experience in other member states have had similar ambitions to Malta, so we can agree with the ambitions, but sometimes experience has shown that such investments are quite challenging to implement. Obviously, it does not pay anyone to ignore such experiences, and therefore in Malta, in this case of this reform, Whilst procurement is materializing on the ground, the detailed parameters of the implementation of the digitalization of the judiciary system are being reconsidered. And that leads us to stop and think, would it be an effective reform if we simply proceeded with the implementation of the original plan? Or is it wiser to identify such challenges and adapt the reform now accordingly? These are the real issues on the ground. From a TSI perspective, we agree that TSI has proven especially valuable. It supports member states to fill a critical gap by providing technical expertise and institutional capacity building. It also tends to provide valuable input to the Commission on member states' specific realities and challenges. Looking forward, I would advocate for 3 key improvements: better integration of TSI support with broader reform efforts to allow member states to align technical expertise with project execution on a more seamless level. Second point, longer-term strategic use of TSI, transforming it into mainstream support arm for public administration and independent bodies. We definitely agree. We surely see value in the TSI's continuation post-2027. The last point, a rethink of how we measure reform, moving beyond outputs and deliverables to long-term structural impact. We have to accept, as Evie has rightly pointed out, true reform might take time to fully materialize on the ground. This does not take away the value of quick wins, but reform is more profound than simply a project outcome or a delivery. It does require a shift in the way we portray and quantify the impact of EU funds. After all, we agree, EU funds are meant to build lasting public trust in the Union's capacity to deliver results that really matter.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Theodora, I've got quite a specific question for you. Romania made use of the possibility to transfer RRF funds to the TSI via Article 7. What was behind this decision? What triggered it? And what would you say are the results that are relevant for the future for us to hear about?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Indeed, Romania took this decision in 2021, and it was a very wise decision because we focus on 2 main reforms. The corporate governance for the state-owned enterprises is one of the support that is received. Actually, TSI involved in this, and also another reform really important is it's related to the hydrogen strategy and the action plan. So when it comes to the first reform, indeed, we managed to implement it, actually to translate it into a piece of legislation. But here I come back of what I said earlier. It is not only the design of the reform which is important. It's equally important to find the best way to implement it. So I think this is that we should reflect on, and today it was a reflection day for me, so I will continue in this direction. And then the other hydrogen strategy is already implemented, so I think it was really useful to have this support from the TSI through different international organizations or stakeholders that were selected. But I said, and I will repeatedly mention it, that I think if what we want to address in the end is the root causes and the bureaucratic inefficiencies, then we need to ensure, as I mentioned, a diffusion of ownership for the reform within the entire governance system. And she mentioned, my colleague from Greece, that indeed it is really important, the diffusion of ownership. And I mentioned earlier the diffusion of expertise. This goes hand in hand. One without another, I think it's impossible. So I think another key issue that is drawing as a conclusion for all our experience is that when we reflect to the substantial ex-ante knowledge and planning that is required for the reform design, we should put ourselves the following question: how much ex-ante knowledge and planning can we have at any moment given in time in a world filled with shocks and uncertainties? And perhaps we should all reflect in the future to have smaller milestones, not less ambitious, but smaller milestones based on our necessarily limited ex-ante in any or many policy areas, and then, of course, to enter a joint regular procedure to revise the ambition of a reform. And this it means that sometimes we can increase the ambition of a reform or to simply redesign it. Even though in this scenario, the full ambition of a reform is not going to be set in stone from the beginning. It is more likely to preserve the momentum, to increase the trust and the acceptability, the buying in, the long-term trust of the stakeholders in the reforms. I think this is the most important fact that we should reflect on. Thank you.
Thank you again, seeing lots of nodding when you were speaking, so I think there's some shared perspectives there. Thank you. We're nearly at time, it's nearly lunchtime. Hang on in there, lunch is coming. Last word to you, last question, a very similar question really, which is, how can the EU be more efficient in supporting reforms, and how could the technical assistance and funding programs be better integrated from the Estonian perspective?
Yeah, first, I guess, first we have to start from the member states. I guess the governance is an issue, and also the mindset, to have really reform mindset behind that, to be a kind of good partner for the European Commission and to push those reforms through there. And in Estonia, the evaluation of this project is done by the Ministry of Finance and the Government Office, and really see, because they are kind of responsible of following the strategies there. I think it's a very good decision what we have made there. From European Commission side, I already mentioned that the timeline with the procurements, this is a challenge. Maybe we can do something in there. Also the integration TSI with the other funds, with the other cohesion policy funds there. I guess it has worked well. I don't want to say that it has not worked, but still need to be kind of see some linkages between there. There are some reforms where actually member states can solve that by themselves. Maybe smaller reforms, there is no need to have maybe external expertise behind that. Maybe we didn't have capacity building measure previous programming period and this programming period. So maybe we should have some kind of initiative from there. Maybe we can very fast, quickly invest or start some reforms from this initiative, from really bottom-up approach. This could be maybe useful, but I really like those multi-country projects there. We do have 65 TSI projects altogether, and 20 of them are multi-country projects, because I really believe that cooperation between each other is a key measure, actually, because we want to boost really the European economy. We cannot do it alone, we can do it together. So I guess the multi-country projects are kind of really, really good. Just to an example, if we speak about Rail Baltica, we have different countries there trying to build a new railway there. It's difficult to struggle by the member states there. It needs kind of multi-country approach there. But from the other side, project finance from the TSI, and a very good example is the social health care, when the mental kind of mental part were kind of linked with the primary care. So this was very good. But in some cases, maybe it can be also solved at the national level, but could be very useful to also use the other countries' kind of expertise there as well. Or just maybe there are lots of Estonians working in Finland. We do have some, we need to have some kind of services between two countries there to provide the services. So this could be also the multi-country project, some kind of initiative behind that as well. We need to continue with this cooperation, strong cooperation, of course, with the EU, with the European Commission, and also the ministerial collaboration, and really have this kind of mindset to have these reforms, have the mindset to make changes happen there, because previously mentioned that the motivation comes from there. So this is maybe short from my side.
I think that's a great note to leave on, the cooperation at all levels and that mindset to make reforms happen. So thank you. We're perfectly at time, so it is lunchtime. For those of you who were here last year and enjoyed the excellent food, I'm told it's the same caterers, so you can look forward to a wonderful lunch, with apologies to our online audience. I hope you have a nice lunch planned too. Please be back here at 1:45. I've been asked to let you know, if you want to go and enjoy the beautiful sunny weather, aren't we lucky? Please go out that way, the front exit, not over there. That's not possible that way. Back at 1:45, and please join me in thanking our wonderful panelists for another great discussion. Thank you.